I am going to tell you about my first crush. And this was in first grade. And about all I remember was that she had long black hair, jet black hair, and she was very kind to me because we had moved in the middle of the school year and I was new to town. She was just nice. And I was still really surprised to get an invitation to her birthday party because it wasn't like one of these huge parties that all the kids go to. And my dad let me pick out the present that I was gonna get her, which was unusual. And usually I deferred to him on these matters because of course he was getting judged too, probably more than I was. And I remember I knew exactly what to get her, and it was kind of a weird toy. It was like a doll that was under a bubble, and it had some kind of scent to it that you could like replenish, like I don't know if it was a spray or a drop. And what you do is that you spray it and then it would be under a bubble and you take the bubble off and there would be a scent to it. That was it. That's why it was weird. So, but I knew when I gave it to her at the party that it was her favorite gift of any of the gifts she got. And when I left that party, I said to myself, this is meant to be. And then at the end of the school year, she went to private school, and I didn't see her for a couple of years, mainly because my parents, I guess, didn't understand how important she was to me. And then in third grade, I went over to my friend Danny O'Hara's house because my parents were going out of town for the weekend, so I was sleeping over at his house that weekend. And I walk in and she's there. And turns out she's best friends with Danny O'Hara's sister in the same situation. She's staying over there for the weekend because her parents are out of town. I have no memory of what happened that weekend. Just that when I left, I said to myself that this was meant to be. And then I didn't see her again for a couple of years. In fifth grade, I went out to Y summer camp, and I went out for the camp play there, which was Fiddler on the Roof, and I was cast as Tevye, and Nancy was my wife, Goldie. And there's a song that, not one of the better known songs, that's like, do you love me? Do I love you? You know. And the end of the song is like, after 25 years, it's nice to know, and then there's supposed to be a kiss. And I was like, oh shit, this is great. And, but you know, it was like I was in fifth grade, so I was like playing shy and everything, and then, and the director was like, oh, are you having a problem? Do you not want to kiss? Do you know whatever? And I really wanted him to say like, damn it, this is like an artistic production, you have to kiss her. And he was like, okay, so it's okay, you can just like take her hand. And I was like, shit. I was like, I won't go, well, I'll talk more about this at a different story, but it's also like a really dangerous production, Fiddler on the Roof. Like he had like kids climbing out on roofs of buildings and like the ghost scene, but it was good, I think. So then my parents kind of scraped the money together and I got to private school in seventh grade. And you know, I wasn't one of the super popular kids, but I played football, so I got invited to like a kissing party, and she was there, and at that point, we did kiss. And, you know, again, I left the party thinking, this is meant to be. Only at the end of the year, I got kicked out of private school. And I wasn't super bad. Like, I just decided I didn't need to go to classes that I thought were stupid. And I used to go to the library instead, so I would cut. I wasn't like smoking weed on the railroad tracks. I used to go to the library, partly because I had a crush on the librarian, Mrs. Greenspan. But it's a different story. And she never said to me, like, what are you doing in the library in the middle of the day? Like, shouldn't you be in school? So I think she kind of liked having me around too. So anyway, I got kicked out of private school and I go back to public school. And then, you know, there was no reason we couldn't have kept in touch, but it was kind of like, I don't know, it was like public school, private school. It's kind of like Jets and Sharks, and I wasn't brave enough to be Tony, or I might have been Maria in that situation, actually. And then we kind of, you know, drifted to high school, and I had a girlfriend, into college, into life. But I always thought, like, maybe one day we'd run into each other again and we'd get together and something would happen. And, sometimes I'd be like in Salt Lake City, even like, 10 years ago or something, I'd be in Salt Lake City and I'd be like, oh, I know, like Nancy's here somewhere and I'm gonna run into her. But, that never happened. And so, I kind of learned a lesson that what's meant to be isn't always meant to be. But that's not the end of the story. There's a quick coda, because Facebook came along, right? And so I get in touch with her, and I didn't send her a note saying like, oh my God, I had such a huge crush on you from like first grade but I just sent her a note saying like, oh, I think we were in a production of Fiddler on the Roof together. I don't have any photos, do you? And she wrote me back saying, my parents died, and my sister has like all the scrapbooks. She took all the scrapbooks, but I'm sure there are photos, and I'll get you some, which she never did. And we're up, I was up here at my house, and I'm looking at her Facebook profile, and I was like, oh my God, and I called, my brother and sister-in-law were visiting, and I called them over here. And I was like, look at this, and my sister-in-law looks at her Facebook profile, and she said, she married a guy, like her husband is your doppelganger. She married a guy that looks exactly like you.